we're going to create that folder. Index.html. Just collapse these. Get our template file. And in the template file, we'll copy that and paste. Again, we don't need the CSS. Mojo will bring its own. Oops. Mojo CSS. All right. And in the documentation, what I'm going to do is put the link to the documentation. So we'll add that quickly. It's mojocss.com. And this is what the documentation looks like. So what we can do is we can click on Getting Started, and you can see that if it's got a whole bunch of documentation, but the one that we're interested in is installation, because we can see if we want to use Mojo via a CDN, it gives us the tag to add to our and you can see here that they give us a template. So we'll add, actually, I'm going to do this from the template. I'm just going to copy that and put it in my head tag. Then you can see that the body has some attributes here. That I'm going to copy and put into the body. And then in my main, or actually before the end of the body, I'm going to add this script tag here. And what this script tag does is it instantiates the Mojo class and will take all the things that it finds in there for it looks at the HTML classes and attributes and things like that to determine what it needs to do. What I'm also going to do is, you can see here that on my H1, it has a class. And what this class does is they have if you look at the documentation, they name their class selectors. If you want to change the text, they have text, and I think C stands for color, and then primary is the color that you want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my header have that class. And we'll leave it at that for now. Let's go and see what the result of doing this is. And you can see, oh, there we go. So the color, the primary color, looks like it's an orange color. And there's my documentation link that takes it there. All right, so what we're going to start doing now is looking at some of the components in the documentation. Right, so if we scroll down here, they have a responsive design section, and they talk about how you can handle the responsive design. And it kind of works like Bootstrap, except that Bootstrap will have classes. Here they actually use attributes. And these are not standard attributes, which is why it will probably end up not validating. We'll check that now. In my main, I'm going to add that grid. And if we view our page now, you can see that it has grid there. And if I increase the width of the browser window, you can see that it's responsive, right? So at a small width, items are one below each other. At a medium, you have 2 rows and 2 columns. And at wide, it's 1 row. So it's nice and responsive. What you can also do, and I'm going to just leave it like this, you can now start saying, I want to change things. So if we go and look at the color system, you can see this is how they define their color system. They have a color system that uses a name. So if we go and look here, you can see they've got gray, gray, blue, red. They have different shades of that color. And they use a negative or a positive number in steps of 5 to specify a different shade of that color. Negative goes darker, positive goes lighter. And you can see that they have a whole bunch of colors here. So what I'm going to do is I want to make those grid items have an orchid color, and we'll make it orchid -15 for the first grid item and +15 for the other 3. So to do that, what we have to do is we go and take a look here. You can see that when they say BG, that means the background, -C is for background color, and then primary is the color. If I want to change it to orchid, I would just change primary to orchid. So if I go here, I'm just going to copy this class here. And I'm going to paste it in here. And instead of saying primary, I'm going to say orchid. And I'm going to make it, I think I said 15, right? So that now, if I save that and I refresh, you can see, oh, that's orchid. All right. Problem is that I have very low contrast. Orchid -15 is like a dark purple, and black on dark purple is almost unreadable. So what we want to do is we want to change the text to white. So to do that, notice how in our H1 we said text C -primary. So what I could do is I could say that I want, in my first grid item, I want text C and instead of primary, I'm going to say white. And now if I refresh, oh, there we go. I have white text on an orchid -15 shade. And then I could say that I want instead of primary, I want orchid. And this one I want plus 15. Plus, not multiplication, plus. And now if I refresh, there you can see that those have obtained that color. So again, these frameworks are opinionated in as how you should actually put things, how you should specify your HTML and your CSS. If we go back and we take a look and look at some of our components, we have a button component, right? So we can see here that we want the background color to be primary, the text to be white. Somewhere in the documentation, they'll tell you what PY2 is. Oh, that is probably padding on the Y, 2 pixels, padding on the S, 4 pixels, and rounded means that 4-pixel rounded border. And you can see they've got hover, and they say on hover, the shade, the color should go to a shade of +5. Right, so what we could do is we can copy that, and if we paste it in underneath that, actually I'm just going to put in a horizontal rule, paste that in, and when I refresh my page, you can see there I have my button. And notice that when I hover over it, the shade goes 1 + 1 + 5. So it becomes a little lighter. And it actually didn't do anything with the horizontal rule. That's interesting. Maybe the framework just says, nope, sorry, don't want that. All right. We go back to the documentation and we just keep on scrolling down and seeing what else can we do. They have patterns that you can set up. This is when you call that Mojo script, you can pass some additional CSS. So you could say if I have a class of button and an attribute of idle, then it should apply these. And you can see here how you can potentially use it in your markup. They also have what they call arbitraries. So if you want to change the size of the text, you can use some special syntax for that, or you can even use a property in the class. There's also an _equal attribute that will allow you to have a selector to select something else. So here you can see that they have an unordered list. We'll go and paste in that unordered list underneath the button. And when we refresh, you can see that the second item has a class equal active, and this here is saying if you have a class active that's a child of the parent tag, change this to have a background color of red and a text color of white. And that's what's happened here. Let's actually add a little bit more text here so that it's easier to see what is in each list item. There we go. So you can see how this framework allows you to change things up. You can also use, you just keep on going down, they have this as a selector, which will target the element itself. So for example, if I say that I want this on my footer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this, but instead of saying red, I'm going to say orange plus 10. That we have a slightly different color. Because remember, when we looked at the color system, they have red, pink, yellow, and there's orange. So orange plus 10 is going to have this shade of orange. And if we refresh, you can see, there we go. Our footer now has that shade of orange. So again, a little different approach, but the end result is that it is relatively simple to change the look and feel of the page based on what attributes and what classes you use from the framework. Any questions on Mojo? You talking about this here? So, yeah,
Inside the brackets, no? I don't know, sorry, not a bracket, like a class, something, maybe the hover on something.
oh, that was, I think, there's a whole bunch of places where they have hover. I'm not sure exactly which one. Was it this one here?
Yeah.
This one here, okay, so yeah, basically what it's saying is that when there's a hover,
Yeah, but that one is an attribute from the library, right?
it's from the framework, yes. This, if we go and add that one in, all right, so I'm just gonna say hover over me. And if I refresh, you can see now, when it hovered, it changes the padding. And what it's doing is, notice here that it says 12 pixels, then an underscore 6 pixels. What that 12 pixels is the top and the bottom, the 6 pixels is the left and the right. Because if you think of the box model,
I would say, yeah, and that one without.
I don't understand what you're asking.
No, if I can use that attribute without, that will allow it. No, it's an attribute.
Yeah, because if we
Yeah.
go and validate, let's just see what happens if we try and validate that. You can see it's not validating at all. So all of these attributes that it added in, like hover, is not a valid attribute. Right? But what happens is that this JavaScript file that we're including over here, right? This is the JavaScript file that we're including. When we call this class here, it makes those, it has some JavaScript that's looking at the HTML, and when it finds those attributes that are not valid for plain HTML, it knows what to do with those attributes. And it's the JavaScript in this file here that is going to do all the work. And you can see the reason that the body has display none is because it doesn't want the browser to display until it's finished executing this here. And the last step of that will be to make the body have a display, probably block, so that it can show what it built. So that's kind of how this framework works. But again, you can see lots of errors, right? Lots of errors because of the fact that it uses attributes that are not defined. In my opinion, what they should have done is, instead of having MD, they should have said data-MD, because the HTML specification says that any attribute that starts with data will validate. Data dash and anything after that, it will validate, but it's to be used by the page itself. So if they had done that, then all of these errors would not be shown.